Again, I think it would be best if perhaps if you do have a question, come up online here. If the line gets too long, wait a little bit.
Please, not too many. I want to go to lunch.
Ayn Rand is in bad shape psychologically in that she refuses to rationally discuss the nature of reality with people who hold and apply the same basic premises as she. And I'd refer specifically to her cavalier, irrational treatment of Mr. Roy Child's excellent derivation of anarchism from objectivist fundamentals. As a psychologist, do you think that there is any way in terms of written communication to bring Ms. Rand back to psychological rationality?
I sincerely wish I could think of a way. I guess ways have been tried, letters and so forth. From what I've been able to tell, I think the chances are pretty slim. And if any of you have got any answers, let me know. But I really don't see anything that we can do. It's going to have to be up to her. I just really don't.
Would you comment on Rand's idea of the superiority of men over women?
I will in great length tomorrow, but briefly, I can't buy it. I don't see any, I think their arguments don't hold water. I see no reason to think that one person or one sex or another is superior. And I think that it is a blatant contradiction which undermines everything else they say about how women should not be passive and dependent. And I'll discuss it in slightly greater length tomorrow.
What about the idea of moral relativism, the idea that we can work with what levels distinguishing, defining characteristics would you say those who you could work with?
Well, it's a very individual sort of thing. It's hard to give a generalization, but because I do think that there are some people that would be inappropriate to work with. I almost have to talk about specific examples. I think
In principles, please.
in principles. If the goal that a particular other group is working for is one consistent with libertarian ideas, such as draft resistance or any of those, I think that, generally speaking, there's something to be gained from that. Of course, it's mainly a matter of goals. Also, if you can avoid the danger of having your own particular principles submerged. I really find it difficult to talk about it without citing specific examples. There's no point, obviously there's no point in working with completely non-authoritarian groups or working for a non-authoritarian principle. There's nothing to be gained from it. And I am not advocating working with all the groups on the New Left. I think there are some that are useful. And I'm particularly interested in individual contact with people on the New Left. I think that that's very useful.
Yes, you mentioned that you could find no relation between drug use and productivity or improductivity in your research, and also you mentioned don't put down the drug user if you use alcohol. Well, I am not an alcoholic, fortunately, but if you research it, you would find that, well, the alcoholic, except for the Skid Row Delaware, would continue to hold a responsible job and contribute somewhat to the community and society while he's in suffering from alcoholism. A lot of drug users completely tune out and drop out completely and are utterly unproductive.
First of all, let me emphasize when I talked about a correlation between productivity and drug use, I was speaking primarily of libertarians. However, in regard to the example of drug users who drop out, I don't think this is because they use drugs. I think the drug is only a symptom of a much deeper problem. That if they drop out and don't produce, that's whatever that means. There's many ways of producing besides having a job.
Well,
No, I was just saying that I don't think that I'm speaking as a general rule, a general characteristic. Not there are individuals who are different.
well, drug abuse is just as deep, if not deeper, a problem than alcoholism. Then explain there why the person who abused drugs would drop out, whereas the alcoholic would not.
Because of the difference in the kinds of people who are attracted to drugs, very often it's younger people who are attracted to drugs rather than alcohol because it's a way of rebelling. And it also happens that another concomitant theme is the idea, like a rejection of so-called middle-class values and so forth and so on. It's not because of the drugs, it's because of a prior thing. They've rejected certain kinds of values for whatever, middle-class values for whatever reason. And the prescribed way of rebelling in certain circles is to use drugs. The point that I wanted to make, I do agree there's a lot of drug misuse, abuse, but I don't think that you can say that a person who uses drugs, particularly pot, is necessarily a misuser or an abuser of it.
And that's, please don't forget to give the doctor.
Sharon, I noticed that one of the things that you were trying to bring out was the distinction between disagreeing with someone and considering them a moral degenerate, etc., or, on the opposite side of the coin, the understanding that you can accept somebody's disagreements without necessarily implying that you agree with them. And I was wondering if you might be able to go into what you think are the essential reasons why people, the deeper psychological reasons why people go from saying, I think you're making a mistake, to, you are a moral degenerate.
Well, there are probably a lot of reasons. Psychology is not a simple matter. You can't, do grandiose generalizations. Some psychologists don't even realize this. But I think Rokeach makes this distinction between, and not a dichotomization, but kind of a gradation from open to closed mind. Okay, that's the second step back. Some people are much more tolerant, have much more open minds, and why that comes about? Well, why are people intolerant? Well, some of it is maybe insecurity, in a very deep sense. They are afraid to admit the possibility of new information. Sometimes it's just ignorance. They don't know other ways.
You see, what I was trying to get at is, while I enjoyed your talk and I certainly agree with you, the problem I see is, not to sound like a behaviorist, that the problem is to help people to be able to change their behavior. And the problem, as I see it, is that an awful lot of people who have, the particular moralistic mindset to begin with, may make the resolution, therefore I should be tolerant, and not get anywhere with it, except start saying, you dirty, intolerant bum.
Up to a certain point, it has to be tolerant of intolerance, too. Some of my best friends are intolerant. And I would really like, this when I talked about further development of the ideas, this is one kind of thing I have in mind. I'd really like to be thinking about why are people intolerant, and really getting into that, because it's true, because that's where we have to change it. And this speech, I really don't know if it's going to do too much good, because it's not speeches that change people's minds at this level.
Well, so, I hope everybody thinks about what was said.
Yes, I do too.
Well, all right.
Personally, I don't like rulers or despots or dominators. For that reason, I guess I consider myself libertarian, but I do look up to leaders and people who have something to offer and who you would respect. So, in that regard, how would you classify the proper function of a leader? How does he manifest his role without, to you, seeming, despotic?
Yeah, I did emphasize the difference between a leader role and a boss role. Certainly, there is a place for leaders in the sense of people who are maybe an expert on a subject or who take the initiative, know how to get things done. I think there it becomes a matter of how they relate to other people, whether they are willing to exchange ideas with them, ask other people's opinions if it's appropriate, and see what other people have to say. And it's kind of an attitude toward other people. Just recognizing that they are in some sense your equals and not your inferiors.
Okay.
Or maybe not intellectually, but at least psychologically.
Right. In the same vein, you also, in talking about psychological laissez-faire, you mentioned leaving people alone completely as falling under the category of tolerance. Now, where does that leave suggestion, invocation, injection, etc.? Short of criticism.
What I should clarify what I meant by leaving them alone. I don't mean, don't try and persuade other people, but it's just don't put other people down if they differ, and if you want to persuade them, do it in a reasonable manner.
Okay, and finally, I notice you're wearing a button depicting a triangle or a pyramid. Now, tell me if I'm hung up on symbols here, but perhaps I'm missing out on other interpretations or meanings of the symbol. But as I have it, I understand that the pyramid is the symbol of authority descending downward in hierarchical order. I don't know if why you're wearing that button, and I may be fetching, but isn't that rather contradictory to that which you advocate?
It would be if the button were other than what it is. What it is a joke. It's a Bavarian Illuminati button. Let's hear it for the Illuminati! And it's my way of having fun with the lunatic fringe. For those of you who don't know, the Bavarian Illuminati is presumably the conspiracy above all conspiracies responsible for all the other conspiracies of the world. And I just think it's a fun thing to wear and make fun of.
Don't forget the snake people. They're really behind the Illuminati.
That's right. There's a new theory that the snake people are really predecessors to the Illuminati. And I'd like to hear more about that. That's very interesting.
The kind of authoritarianism you describe is endemic in the entire society. But I'd like you to comment on a set of problems that seem to be peculiar to libertarians. Mainly just becoming neurotically depressed by a surrounding hostile society. Libertarians who breed within themselves on occasion a kind of very violent, out-of-context hatred and desire to kill people, and I think that happens to all of us. For example, I know of one acquaintance who, upon reading one of Rand's articles concerning what happened in the Soviet Union, he put his fist through a door jamb. And this kind of thing, libertarians who are oppressed by a neurotic urge to commit suicidal, really, acts of defiance or withdrawal of sanction against the